The day my parents celebrated selling my grandfather's mansion was the day they believed they had finally erased him from our lives. They laughed as they signed the papers. They counted the money before the ink was even dry. They looked at me as if I had already lost. They were wrong, because hidden inside that old house was something they never knew existed. One letter, written by my grandfather only days before he died. A letter that would destroy every lie they had built for years. And by the time they realized what it meant, it was already too late. Welcome to Final Chapter Stories. If you enjoy powerful stories of betrayal, revenge, and justice, you're in the right place. Subscribe, turn on notifications, and let's begin. My name is Evelyn Hart. I'm 45 years old, and until 2 years ago, I believed family always came before money. I know how foolish that sounds now. Growing up, my grandfather, Arthur Hart, was my safe place. His mansion wasn't just a beautiful house on a quiet hill outside our town. It was where every Christmas, birthday, and family dinner happened. Every hallway held memories. Every room had a story. While my parents chased promotions, vacations, and expensive cars, Grandpa always made time for me. He taught me how to fix old furniture. He taught me how to grow roses. Most importantly, he taught me that a person's character was worth more than anything they could ever own. As he grew older, I visited him every weekend. My parents rarely came. Whenever they did, they spent more time asking about investments than asking about his health. I noticed it. Grandpa noticed it too, but he never complained. Instead, he smiled and changed the subject. About 6 months before he passed away, something changed. He became quieter. Sometimes I caught him staring out the library window as if he were thinking about something heavy. One afternoon, while we drank tea together, he suddenly asked me, "Evelyn, if people disappoint you, what do you do?" I smiled. "You forgive them." He looked at me for several seconds before saying, "Sometimes forgiveness is earned. Sometimes truth has to arrive first." At the time, I didn't understand what he meant. Now I know those words changed my life. The last time I visited him, he hugged me longer than usual. He whispered, "No matter what happens after I'm gone, don't stop asking questions." I thought he was simply emotional. 3 days later, he passed away peacefully in his sleep. The funeral was heartbreaking, yet something felt strange. My parents barely cried. Instead, they spent most of the day talking privately with lawyers and real estate agents. I told myself I was imagining things. After all, grief affects everyone differently. But deep inside, a quiet voice kept telling me something wasn't right. I just didn't know how wrong everything was about to become. Only a week after the funeral, I received a phone call that made my stomach drop. Someone had already put my grandfather's mansion on the market, and nobody had told me. I stared at my phone long after the call ended. There has to be some mistake, I whispered to myself. The woman from the real estate office had sounded completely confident. "I'm sorry, Miss Hart," she had said. "Your parents signed the listing agreement 3 days ago. We assumed the whole family already knew." 3 days ago. That meant they had started selling my grandfather's mansion almost immediately after the funeral. Without telling me, without even asking if I wanted to say goodbye to the home where I had spent half my life. I drove there as fast as I could. The front gate was wide open. Expensive SUVs filled the driveway. A large sign stood on the lawn, "For sale." Seeing those 2 words in front of my grandfather's home felt like someone had punched me in the chest. Inside, strangers were walking through the rooms, admiring the hardwood floors and antique fireplaces. One couple laughed as they discussed turning Grandpa's library into a home theater. I wanted to scream. Instead, I walked straight into the dining room where my parents sat with the realtor. My mother looked surprised. "Evelyn, what are you doing here?" "What am I doing here?" I asked, struggling to keep my voice steady. "Why is Grandpa's house being sold?" My father sighed as though I were the unreasonable one, because that's what responsible adults do. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "This isn't just a house." "No," he replied. "It's a very valuable piece of property." I looked from him to my mother. "You didn't even tell me." My mother folded her arms. "You don't need to know every family decision." Family decision? Nobody had asked me anything. "I spent more time with Grandpa than either of you," I said quietly. Neither of them answered. The silence said everything. The realtor politely excused herself, leaving the three of us alone. I took one last look around the room. Grandpa's favorite chair was already gone. His paintings had disappeared. The old grandfather clock he loved was missing too. "Where are his things?" I asked. "They've been sorted," my father answered. "Sorted, sold, donated, thrown away. Whatever needed to happen. Thrown away." Those words echoed in my head. Not furniture. Memories. A lifetime reduced to numbers on a spreadsheet. "You had no right." "We had every right," my father snapped. "The house belongs to us now." Something about the way he answered bothered me. He didn't say, "The estate transferred to us." He simply said, "It belongs to us." Almost as if he already knew that long before Grandpa died. Before I could ask another question, my mother stepped closer. "You need to stop making this emotional." "It is emotional. It's just a building." "No," I said. "It was his life." She looked away. For the first time, I noticed something strange. Neither of them could look me in the eyes. That tiny detail stayed with me. I left without another word. Outside, I sat in my car for nearly 20 minutes. I kept replaying everything they had said. Every sentence felt rehearsed, almost planned. Then my phone buzzed. It was a message from Grandpa's old gardener, Mr. Collins. "Miss Evelyn, I think there are some things you should know. Please don't let them tear the house down until we talk." My heart started racing. I called him immediately. His voice was nervous. "I can't explain everything over the phone." "What is it?" I asked. He lowered his voice. "The week before your grandfather passed away, he asked me to help him hide something." My pulse quickened. "What did he hide?" "I don't know exactly. He never showed me." "Then what do you know?" "He told me only one thing." "What?" Mr. Collins took a deep breath. He said, "If my family ever sells this house too quickly, tell Evelyn to look behind the library wall before it's too late." Behind the library wall? I froze. The library had always been Grandpa's favorite room. Had he hidden something there? Documents? Money? A will? Or something even more important? But there was one problem. The closing date for the sale was only 4 days away. If the new owners started renovating before I found whatever Grandpa had hidden, it could be lost forever. As I drove home that night, one question wouldn't leave my mind. Why had Grandpa trusted me with a clue, instead of simply telling me the truth while he was still alive? Little did I know, the answer would expose a betrayal that had been hiding inside my family for decades. I thought finding the hidden secret would finally give me answers. I couldn't have been more wrong. Because what I discovered behind the library wall was only the first piece of a much darker puzzle. Everything falls apart. I barely slept that night. Mr. Collins' words kept echoing in my head. Look behind the library wall before it's too late. The next morning, I drove back to the mansion before sunrise. I knew the open house wouldn't begin for another 2 hours. If I was lucky, I could get inside without attracting too much attention. The front door was unlocked. Workers were already packing the last few pieces of furniture into a moving truck. No one paid much attention to me. They assumed I was another family member collecting personal belongings. I walked straight to Grandpa's library. The room looked empty. The bookshelves were still there, but almost every book had been removed. The large oak desk where Grandpa spent countless evenings writing letters was gone. Dust covered the floor where it had once stood. For a moment, I just stood there. The silence hurt more than I expected. I ran my hand across the bookshelf, remembering all the afternoons Grandpa had read stories to me. Then I remembered his clue, behind the library wall. But which wall? I slowly examined the room. Nothing looked unusual, until I noticed a small scratch near the fireplace. Grandpa had always told me never to move one particular bookshelf because it was older than the house itself. At the time, I believed him. Now I wasn't so sure. I pushed against the shelf. Nothing. I tried again with more force. Still nothing. Then I noticed an old brass reading lamp attached to the side of the shelf. I twisted it without thinking. A soft click echoed through the room. My heart nearly stopped. The bookshelf shifted only a few inches. Behind it was a narrow hidden compartment. Inside was a small wooden box. My hands shook as I lifted it out. It wasn't heavy. There was no money.
No jewelry.
No title deed. Only 3 things: an old silver key, a faded photograph, and a sealed envelope. Written across the front, in Grandpa's familiar handwriting, were 6 words. For Evelyn, read this alone. My eyes filled with tears. I finally had something that belonged to him. I reached for the envelope. Evelyn. I jumped. My father was standing in the doorway. His expression changed the moment he saw the box in my hands. "What is that?" he asked sharply. "Nothing." "Let me see it." He walked toward me. Instinctively, I stepped back. "It's from Grandpa." His eyes narrowed. "That belongs to the estate."
No, irraplia.
"It has my name on it." He held out his hand. "Give it to me." For the first time in my life, I looked directly into my father's eyes and said,
No.
His face turned red with anger. "You don't know what you're doing." "Neither do you." Without another word, I slipped the envelope into my bag, grabbed the key and photograph, and hurried past him. He called after me, "Evelyn, stop." I didn't. By the time I reached my car, my hands were trembling so badly that I could barely unlock the door. I drove several miles before pulling into a quiet park. Only then did I finally open the envelope. Inside was a handwritten letter. My grandfather's handwriting was unmistakable. The first line made my heart stop. If you're reading this, it means the people I feared most have already betrayed me. I swallowed hard and kept reading. Grandpa wrote that he had spent the last year quietly watching people around him. He said someone close to him had been pressuring him to sell the mansion. Someone had repeatedly asked him to change his will. Someone had even brought documents for him to sign while he was recovering from an illness. He never wrote their names. Instead, he ended that page with one sentence: "Trust actions, not family titles." There was another page. I turned it over. But before I could read another word, my phone rang. It was Mr. Collins. His voice was shaking. "Miss Evelyn." "What happened?" "They fired me." "What?" "Your parents just told me I was never allowed on the property again." I closed my eyes. This wasn't a coincidence anymore. Someone was trying to erase every person who knew my grandfather's final months. Then Mr. Collins said something that made my blood run cold. They asked me if I had spoken to you. My heart skipped a beat. What did you tell them?
Elite.
Good. But Evelyn, what? They weren't just asking questions. They were searching the library. I looked down at the wooden box sitting beside me. If I had arrived even 30 minutes later, everything inside that hidden compartment would have disappeared forever. I thought finding Grandpa's letter would finally reveal the truth. Instead, it only proved one thing. My parents knew that something had been hidden inside that mansion. They just hadn't found it before I did. I looked back at the second page of Grandpa's letter. For several seconds, I couldn't bring myself to turn it over. Because deep inside, I already knew my life was about to change forever. I took a deep breath and unfolded the second page. The very first sentence mentioned a secret my grandfather had kept for over 20 years, and it had everything to do with my parents. I stared at the second page for what felt like forever before I finally unfolded it. My grandfather's handwriting was steadier than I expected. The first sentence made my entire body freeze. Evelyn, if your parents have already sold my home, then they ignored the one condition I made very clear. I frowned. One condition? I kept reading. Grandpa explained that nearly a year before he died, he had met with his attorney to update his estate plan. He knew his health was declining, and he also knew that money was beginning to matter more to some members of the family than love ever had. He wrote that he didn't want the mansion to become just another piece of property. He wanted it protected. So he had created a legal agreement. According to that agreement, the mansion could not be sold until every document in his personal archive had been reviewed and released by his attorney. If anyone tried to sell the property before that process was complete, the transaction could be legally challenged. I read the paragraph 3 times. Could my parents really have ignored something that important? Then I noticed another sentence. If they rushed to sell the house, they either never read the agreement or they hoped nobody else had. My hands tightened around the letter. For the first time, I realized this wasn't just about greed. It was about deception. At the bottom of the page, Grandpa had written one final instruction. Take the silver key to the old safety deposit box at First Heritage Bank. Everything you need is waiting there. I looked at the small silver key lying beside me. So this was what it opened. Without wasting another minute, I drove straight to First Heritage Bank. The bank manager checked the key, looked at my grandfather's records, and then quietly disappeared into the back office. Several minutes later, she returned carrying a small metal box. There are instructions, she said gently. Your grandfather requested that this box only be released to you. Inside were neatly organized folders, copies of legal documents, property records, old letters, a leather-bound journal, and one sealed envelope addressed to Attorney Daniel Brooks. My heart raced. I called the number written on one of the business cards. A calm voice answered. This is Daniel Brooks. My name is Evelyn Hart.
Silence.
Then he said something I wasn't expecting. I've been wondering when you'd call. You knew my grandfather? I represented him for almost 15 years. I found a letter. I suspected you would. I took a deep breath. My parents sold his mansion. Another long silence. Then his voice became serious. When I gave him the date, he sighed heavily. That sale should never have happened. Those words sent a chill through me. He explained that Grandpa had filed multiple legal protections on the property shortly before his death. But because the documents were stored separately, no one had contacted him before the sale. Someone had moved very quickly. Too quickly. Can we stop it? I asked. We might. If we have enough evidence. I looked down at the folders inside the box. We do. For the first time since Grandpa died, I felt hope, but I also knew one thing. If my parents learned what I had found, they would do everything possible to stop me. So I told no one. Not my friends. Not my relatives.
No social media.
Nothing. I quietly scanned every document. I organized every receipt, every handwritten note, every legal record. Then something inside Grandpa's journal caught my attention. A page dated almost 8 months before his death. It read, "Your father visited again today. He begged me to sign another version of the property papers. When I refused, he became angry. I fear he no longer sees me as his father, only as an obstacle." I closed the journal. Tears filled my eyes. Grandpa had known exactly what was happening. He had been documenting everything. There was another entry. Evelyn still visits every Saturday. She asks for nothing. That's why she deserves the truth. I couldn't hold back the tears anymore. This wasn't just evidence. It was proof that Grandpa trusted me until the very end. Over the next 2 weeks, Attorney Brooks quietly began reviewing every document. Meanwhile, my parents acted as if nothing had happened. They celebrated the sale. They booked an expensive vacation. They even told relatives how smoothly everything had gone. They believed they had won. They had no idea that every day brought us closer to exposing the truth. Then Attorney Brooks called me late one evening. "Evelyn." His voice sounded excited. "I found something." "What is it?" There wasn't just one legal protection. There wasn't.
No.
There were 3. I sat up immediately. "What does that mean?" "It means your grandfather planned for every possible situation. And one of those documents changes everything." My heart started pounding. "What does it say?" He paused before answering. "It says the ownership of the mansion may never have legally transferred in the first place." I couldn't breathe. If that was true, then my parents hadn't just betrayed Grandpa. They may have sold a house they didn't legally own. And if that happened, everything they had built their lives upon was about to collapse. They thought the money was already theirs. But they had no idea that one forgotten document was about to turn their greatest victory into their biggest nightmare. Attorney Brooks asked me to meet him at his office the very next morning. I barely slept. For weeks, I had been collecting pieces of a puzzle that never seemed to fit together. Now, it finally felt like we were looking at the complete picture. When I arrived, several thick folders were already spread across the conference table. Brooks looked up and smiled. "Evelyn, I think your grandfather knew this day would come." He slid a document toward me. It was dated 11 months before Grandpa's death. Across the top were the words, "Declaration of Conditional Transfer of Estate." "I've never seen this before," I whispered. "Neither had your parents," Brooks replied. "Otherwise, they never would have rushed the sale." He explained everything carefully. Grandpa had placed the mansion into a protected family trust. According to the trust, the property could not legally be sold until 3 conditions were completed. First, every beneficiary had to receive written notice. Second, the estate attorney had to approve the transfer. Third, Grandpa's final personal instructions had to be read and acknowledged. None of those 3 things had happened. Not one. I leaned back in my chair. "So the sale," Brooks nodded, "can be challenged in court." For the first time since Grandpa died, I smiled. But Brooks wasn't finished. "There is something else." He opened Grandpa's leather journal and pointed to an entry written just 6 weeks before his death. The words hit me like a wave. If anyone tries to sell my home before Evelyn receives my final letter, they are acting against my wishes. That single sentence strengthened everything. Grandpa had anticipated exactly what would happen. Now we finally had proof. Within days, Brooks filed an emergency legal challenge. The buyers were immediately notified that ownership of the mansion was under dispute. Everything stopped. Construction crews left. Renovation plans were canceled. The sale proceeds were temporarily frozen while the court reviewed the case. My parents were furious. 3 days later, my phone rang. It was my father. "Evelyn, what have you done?" I asked the truth to speak for itself. "You've embarrassed this family."
No, he answered calmly.
"You did that." His voice grew louder. "Do you realize how much money you've tied up?" "I know exactly how much." "You don't understand business." This was never about business. It was Grandpa's decision.
No, he replied.
"It was yours." He hung up without another word. That afternoon, relatives started calling me. Some believed my parents. Others wanted to hear my side. I didn't argue. I simply said, "The documents will answer every question." A week later, the first court hearing took place. My parents arrived looking confident. Their attorney insisted everything had been done legally. Then, Attorney Brooks stood. One by one, he presented the evidence. The trust agreement, the journal entries, the estate instructions, the hidden letter. Finally, he presented Grandpa's handwritten statement explaining why he had created those protections. The courtroom became completely silent. Even the judge spent several minutes carefully reading every page. Then something unexpected happened. The attorney representing the buyers stood up. "We were never informed of any of these restrictions." He looked directly at my parents. "If these documents are authentic, my clients entered this purchase without full disclosure." The confidence disappeared from my parents' faces. For the first time, they realized this wasn't a family argument anymore. It was a legal matter. Outside the courtroom, reporters had already gathered. Someone had leaked details about the unusual inheritance dispute. My parents tried to avoid the cameras. I simply walked past without saying a word. The facts would speak louder than I ever could. 2 days later came another unexpected twist. Mr. Collins called me. "I found something while cleaning my garage." "What is it?" "A small security camera." I frowned. "The one your grandfather installed near the library entrance." My heart skipped a beat. I thought it stopped working years ago. So did I. He laughed softly. "But I found the memory card." We met that evening. Neither of us expected much. The camera had only activated when someone entered the library. Most recordings showed Grandpa reading, sometimes me bringing him tea. Then, one recording from 8 months before his death appeared. My father walked into the library carrying several documents. The audio wasn't perfect, but one sentence was painfully clear. "Just sign the papers, Dad. Nobody has to know." Grandpa slowly shook his head. "I won't sell my home while I'm alive." My father slammed the folder shut and walked away. The recording ended. Mr. Collins looked at me. "This changes everything." I nodded. "No." I whispered. "It changes everything for them." That night, I placed the memory card inside the evidence folder and called Attorney Brooks. There was a long silence after he watched the video. Finally, he smiled. "Evelyn." "Yes, I think we're ready." "Ready for what?" "The final hearing." I looked out the window toward the hill where Grandpa's mansion still stood. For weeks, my parents believed they had buried the truth forever. Now, the truth was about to walk into a courtroom. And there was one final secret hidden inside Grandpa's last letter. A secret that would decide who truly deserved to carry the Hart family name. I thought exposing the illegal sale would be the end of a story. I couldn't have been more wrong, because Grandpa's final letter contained one last revelation. And when it was read aloud, no one in the courtroom was prepared for what came next. The final hearing arrived on a cold Monday morning. I stood outside the courthouse for a few moments, looking up at the building. My hands were shaking, but not from fear. This was the day Grandpa had prepared me for. Attorney Brooks met me at the entrance. "You ready?" he asked. I took a deep breath. I've been ready since the day I found his letter. Inside the courtroom, every seat was filled. My parents sat across the room, avoiding my eyes. For the first time in weeks, they didn't look confident. They looked exhausted. The judge entered, and the courtroom fell silent. Attorney Brooks began with the documents we had already presented. Then he played the security camera recording. The room was completely still. Everyone watched my father pressure Grandpa to sign the property papers. When the video ended, no one spoke. Even my parents' attorney lowered his head. Then Brooks stood one last time. "Your Honor," he said, "there is one final document." He held up Grandpa's last sealed letter. The letter Mr. Arthur Hart instructed should only be read if his granddaughter, Evelyn Hart, discovered it herself. The judge nodded. "You may proceed." Brooks carefully unfolded the letter and began reading. "To my family, if these words are being read in a courtroom, then my greatest fear has come true. I never wanted my family to fight over my home. A house can always be rebuilt. Trust cannot. During my final year, I watched people reveal who they truly were. Some visited because they loved me. Others visited because they loved what I owned. Those are not the same thing." I felt tears forming. Brooks continued, "Evelyn never once asked me for money. She never asked about my will. She only asked how I was feeling. That is why I leave my greatest gift to her. Not because she is perfect, but because she remembered that family begins with love, not inheritance." The courtroom was silent. Then Brooks read the final page. "If anyone attempted to sell my home before this letter was found, I ask the court to return the mansion to my estate until every legal instruction has been honored. And to Evelyn, if you are reading this, do not waste your life seeking revenge. Seek the truth. Revenge ends a fight. Truth changes generations." I closed my eyes. Even at the end of his life, Grandpa wasn't thinking about punishment. He was thinking about healing. The judge took nearly an hour to review every piece of evidence. Finally, everyone returned to the courtroom. His decision was clear. The sale of the mansion had violated the conditions of the family trust. The transaction was declared invalid. The buyers would receive their money back from the frozen sale proceeds. The property would return to Grandpa's estate until every instruction in his will was properly completed. Then the judge looked directly at my parents. He reminded them that honesty and transparency were legal responsibilities, not optional choices. The courtroom was dismissed. Outside, reporters surrounded everyone. For the first time, my parents stopped trying to defend themselves. They quietly walked to their car without saying a single word. As I started walking toward mine, I heard someone call my name. It was my mother. Her eyes were red. "I'm sorry." I looked at her for a long moment. Months earlier, I would have accepted those words immediately. Now I understood something Grandpa had taught me. Forgiveness and trust are not the same thing. "I'm willing to forgive you," I said softly, "but trust has to be earned." She nodded, unable to speak. A few weeks later, the legal process was finally complete. According to Grandpa's wishes, the mansion wasn't sold. Instead, it was restored. One section became a small community library in his name. Another room was turned into a workshop where young people could learn woodworking, just as Grandpa had taught me years ago. Mr. Collins returned to care for the gardens. Attorney Brooks became one of my closest friends. Every Saturday morning, I still walked through the library. Sometimes I would sit in Grandpa's old chair and read one of his journals. It reminded me that the greatest inheritance he left behind wasn't a mansion. It was wisdom. One afternoon, while planting new roses outside the front porch, I found myself smiling. Not because I had won, but because Grandpa's voice had finally been heard. The mansion was never really about bricks, walls, or money. It was about protecting the values that lived inside it. And those values could never be sold. People often ask me if I regret taking my own parents to court. My answer is always the same. I didn't take my family to court. Their choices took us there. I simply refused to let the truth stay buried. Looking back now, I understand something I couldn't see before. The greatest revenge isn't watching someone lose everything. The greatest revenge is refusing to become like the people who hurt you. Because when truth finally arrives, it doesn't need anger to make itself heard. It only needs courage. Greed may win for a little while, but honesty always leaves the stronger legacy. Wealth can build houses, but only love, integrity, and truth can build a family worth remembering. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share it with someone who believes that the truth always finds its way. And remember, sometimes the most valuable inheritance isn't what someone leaves behind. It's the lesson they leave in your heart.